Hey everyone, welcome to another $1,000 strap search. I've got my $1,000 in singles here and I'm about to show you what I found. But before I do, let's talk about this week's tip. Now, I get a lot of questions as to whether or not people should get specific notes graded. And ultimately, my answer would be no, you shouldn't. Why? Because if you're asking me if you should get it graded, then you probably don't have the experience needed to grade the note yourself without using a grading company, which means you may have paid more than what the note is worth based on the grade. Okay. Now, I don't want to be mean about that, but if you really want a graded note, buy a graded note. There's nothing wrong with buying graded notes. When you buy ungraded notes, well, then the whole game is, do I know how to grade a note better than the seller? Because if you can grade a note more accurately than the seller, then you have a chance to buy a note that grades a 20 for the price of an 8. And then you can resell that note for a profit. If you can't, if you have any doubt at all of your grading ability, do not buy a note and then send it in for grading. Just don't do it. Why? Because to start with, you negotiated the price of the note when you bought it. Now, to be satisfied with that price, you are then going to be adding a minimum of $40 if you send that note in for grading. Now, understand you have to pay for shipping and insurance each way, okay? So if you send one note in for grading, well, you just added potentially upwards of $80 to the cost of your note. So, yeah, if you bought a note for $50 and you think it's worth $100, well, now you have to spend $80 to have it graded. That's a losing proposition. It's much better to buy that exact same note already graded to where that $100 price tag is. So once again, if you are considering sending a note in for grading, I question why you bought it. I mean, I really do understand the fun of trying to buy a note and then sending in for grading to see if you got the seller. I mean, everybody wants to get the seller one way or the other. But that's a whole different game. If the object is for you to buy a note and keep the note and hope the note goes up in value, well, all the money that you spent on grading, that's going to take a long time for the note itself to equal out, if that makes sense. Anyway, it's a question I get way too often. If you have a question about sending a note in for grading, then no, don't send it in for grading because it's not worth it. If you really want a note graded, just buy one graded until you can accurately grade notes. Once you have the ability to do that, then you can start having a little bit of profit. That's another thing that I'd like to point out too. If you buy a bunch of graded notes in varying degrees of grades, that's going to help train your eye as to what a 20 is compared to a 15, compared to a 12, compared to a 25. If you have a couple of each of those notes in your collection already, now you're going to start to understand and see with your own eyes what those notes look for, and you'll be able to look for those things when you're buying raw notes. So once again, buy the note graded already. Not only are you guaranteeing the grade of that particular note and the value of that particular note, but you're also helping to train yourself to see that grade before it's graded. All right, let's take a look at what I found this week. Let's get these out of the way. Taking a look. I have a weird birthday note. It's 1985, and it would be October 3rd, or you could look at it as the 10th of March. Not the way you really want to see a birthday note, but you know something? If this was my birthday, I'd be happy. I'd be ecstatic finding my birthday in the wrong order. That's all that was. Let's see, what do we got here? Trinary, 0s, 1s, and 4s. No additional value on those. 1, 2s, and 6s. This is 3s, 5s, and 8s. And we got some stars. Checking to see if the stars are filled. They are not. 2017A. Another 2017A, another 2017A, and another, and another, and another. Easy to find stars still, so that's good. 2017, Another 2017, pretty rough shape. 2013, 2009, and this is starting the older notes, 2003A. I pull all notes that are 20 years or older, just because nobody else does. If they're in rough shape like this, they'll go back in circulation, but you still get to see how many of these that I find every week. 2003A, 2003A, 2003A. Another one with writing, definitely going away. 2003, 2003, 2003, 2001, 1999, another 99, 1995, another 95, another 95, 1988A, still no web notes found, 1988A, another 88A, pretty rough shape on that one, and the oldest note I found was a 1988. All right, so those were my finds for this week. What did I pull? Well, I have a graded note. This, one of my recent purchases. This is a 1914 Federal Reserve note. Not a Federal Reserve Bank note, just a Federal Reserve note. 1914 was the first year that the Federal Reserve notes were put out. This particular one is a $50 bill, and you've heard me talk about that in the past. If you want to find a note that is likely to be worth more money in the future, maybe start by looking at the denomination. And I don't mean that this is going to be worth money because it's a 50 specifically. I mean it's going to be worth money because they don't make very many 50s. So it's going to be worth more, not because it's 50 times the value of a $1 bill, but because it is much more rare. They didn't make a bunch of 50s. So if you're going to choose a denomination to collect, I highly recommend collecting one that they didn't print many of. 50s is one denomination. $10 bills, they print about as many $10 bills as they do $2 bills. And $50 bills is even more rare. So yeah, the denomination in and of itself is going to help drive the price in the future because you just don't happen to see them. Now this particular one is graded Choice Fine 15, and if you look at it, it looks pretty rough. I mean, even on the top, it does have a little bit of raggedy edges there, and if I remember right, they didn't give it an apparent, or a net grade, I should say. PCGS uses apparent, PMG uses net. But they did not notate that there. They just put Choice Fine, but on the back they did list it as minor edge damage. So you did get a comment, even though you didn't get the apparent grade. Now, looking at the note, you can see major folds in the note. You can see lots of handling in the note. And I'm trying to see, that may even be, no, I was going to say, is that writing? But those actually just look like the fibers that made a weird particular digit. The dirt highlights all the different folds and creases in the note. And the corner that's not folded over, it's actually missing. So there can be a lot done to a note and it still retain the grade as high as 15. Don't look at a note like this and automatically assume, oh yeah, that's an 8. Or if you see a note like this, maybe you should assume it's an 8 and convince the seller it's an 8, and then you get this note. Once again, understanding what an 8 looks like compared to a 15, do you see how that would make a lot more sense rather than just guessing? We're going to look at the book in just a second, but before I do, we're going to take a closer look here. We've got 3C. This is from the Philadelphia Federal Reserve. They use both the numeral and the letter, and of course you can see the 3C there. It has the small 3C here. And I'm wondering if they noted it up here, which particular one that is. It just says 1035. It doesn't list the particulars there. I'll show you that in the book as well. But the cool part about this note, like this isn't cool enough, is the back. You'll notice that you have a ship on this side. There's a schooner in the back. If you look way in the distance, it looks like a lighthouse there. And if we go on this side, we have a battleship. So you have basically a cruise ship and a battleship. You've got fun stuff and wartime on the ocean. But the other cool part that I was always fascinated about this note was the center. Not her. Look in the background. There's palm trees. I mean, Why would there be palm trees on a U.S. note? Because this note actually, you can see down here, commemorates the completion of the Panama Canal. So this is the joining of the Atlantic Sea and the Pacific Ocean. So it's almost as if you're at the Panama Canal looking north, and that gives you the two oceans on this side, the palm trees, and the land in the distance would of course be America. Actually, technically it would be Mexico, but if you look far enough, it's America. Anyway, the $50 Federal Reserve note is the note that has the palm trees on it, and I was always fascinated by that, so I was really happy to get this note. All right, we're going to check out the book. Like I said, 1914 Federal Reserve from Philadelphia, graded 15. Let's see what the book has to say. When I talk about the book, we are looking at paper money of the United States. Every video I make and I say, let's get the book, somebody will ask. So I will put this out there, and you can see I paid the extra $5 and had mine spiral bound so that I can actually open it up and show you guys. $50 right there. If we look at the top, you can see Federal Reserve notes, $20 bills, and now it switches to the 50s. And we can go on this side. The first roughly 10% of the notes had red seals. Those can be quite expensive. Mine is not a red seal. Mine is from Philadelphia, and let me just double check the FR number. 1035 is what that is there. So if we look here, FR 1035, flip this over, there we go. FR 1035, Philadelphia, those are the signature combinations. And in VG8, it's $225. In a 12, it's $350. In a 20, you're talking $475. Okay. Mine's a 15, so we're talking somewhere in this range, the $350 to $475. If we were to call it $400 just to play it safe, let's do that. And now, if I would have bought this note raw, do you see how I could have convinced the guy that it was an 8 and probably talked him down close to that $225 range? And then I'd be able to grade the note for, even if I sent it in by itself, that would be $80. So now we're talking $300 invested in the note. And when it comes back a 15, that $300 investment now becomes $400. That is the importance of being able to grade a note. And until you develop that eye, I don't really recommend sending in notes, because all you're doing is costing yourself more money. Imagine sending in 10 notes at $40 a piece. That means you just spent $400 grading. Do you want to spend $400 grading? Or do you want to spend $400 and get one of these? See? Now you understand where I'm coming from. All right, guys, if you learned anything new this week, go ahead and hit that like button. If you like what you see and you want to see more, please subscribe. Love reading all your comments. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.